Sexual harassment in the halls of the Texas state capitol.
Ranging from suggestive glances or comments, offhand comments, to actual sexual assault.
Now, a push to change the culture.
I think we're at a tipping point in that women are coming forward and saying enough.
Good morning and thank you for joining us for State of Texas. I'm Josh Hinkle. Governor Greg Abbott plans to work with lawmakers to improve policies to report and prevent sexual harassment in the state capitol. This comes after several reports describe an environment where young staffers are harassed and even assaulted at the hands of male lawmakers. KXAN's political reporter Phil Prazen spoke to one representative who wants change.
When staff working with State Representative Linda Koop told her they didn't know where to go to report sexual harassment, she said that needed to change.
Some of them are going to school, going to college here. Some are as young as 18 years old. It's a really important thing, especially those of us who are parents.
She sent this letter to Governor Abbott asking him to help set a protocol. Koop wants victims to be able to report to someone who's not a lawmaker and to rid the state of elected officials policing themselves on this issue.
I was a little bit surprised here that even though people would say their protocols, they didn't know what the guidelines were.
Koop sent the letter after reading the Texas Tribune. There, Jolie McCullough was one of a team of reporters who dug into the issue.
Ranging from suggestive glances or comments, offhand comments, to actual sexual assault. And this goes back years and decades even.
What surprised her was they couldn't find any evidence that someone filed a formal sexual harassment complaint ever.
I think it really demonstrates that this is a pervasive problem at the Texas Capitol and one that isn't being dealt with properly.
Representative Koop hopes a new policy will be set by next session in January 2019. Phil Prazen, KXAN News.
Lawmakers in both chambers on Tuesday said they would look at how to improve the process for reporting sexual harassment at the Capitol. Senator Lois Kolkhorst of Brenham is in charge of reviewing the policies in the Senate. House Speaker Joe Straus ordered his chamber's administration committee to review its sexual harassment policy and implement training programs by the end of January. A famous former lawmaker is sharing her own story of sexual harassment by a fellow legislator. Wendy Davis spoke to us about her experience and how she fought back.
You know, like a lot of women in the Texas Capitol, I had my own experience with a sexual harassment encounter where I was inappropriately touched by a newly sworn-in House member at a social event. I don't believe he knew that I was a senator at the time, and there's obviously no excuse regardless of who the person is. But, you know, because I was a senator, I had a way of holding him to account for that. For the next 2 legislative sessions, he didn't get a bill through because I had friends in the House who made sure that that happened. And so it was good to have the ability to hold someone responsible for behaving in that way. But unfortunately, in the Texas Capitol, for so many women that work there, there is no way to hold people to account who are doing such things.
Davis did not name the House member. We asked her to explain why she and many other women working at the Capitol have found it difficult to report cases of sexual harassment.
Part of the problem really is there's no one to report to. And I know that in response to the article that was in the Texas Tribune this week, there's been conversation in the Texas House and Senate about what to do about that. Purportedly, there's a system in place already in the Texas Senate for training and awareness. I have to tell you, I have no idea what they're talking about. I was a senator there for 6 years and I never heard of such a thing. So maybe it's the case that brand new elected officials are going through that and brand new employees are going through that. What about all the people who have been working there for years and years and years? Whatever it is, it's not working. And I think there needs to be a much broader system of prevention, of having conversations about what harassment looks like, what are inappropriate comments, particularly from folks from a different generation who may feel like it's okay to say some of the things or do some of the things they've been doing. It's not okay.
Joining us now for some perspective, we have Morgan Smith from the Texas Tribune and R.G. Ratcliffe, the politics editor with Texas Monthly. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
It's been an interesting week as all of these allegations and conversations have really spilled over into Texas politics. We've been hearing about it on a national stage, and you know, it started with the Daily Beast article, and then both of your publications have really talked a lot about it this week. Why do you think it's just now coming up in Texas? Why hasn't it been a conversation earlier?
You know, I think it has been a conversation earlier. It's just one that's been happening a lot more quietly and kind of out of the public eye, because I think that women are only just now feeling like people might listen to them if they come forward.
Mm-hmm. I know you had so much historical perspective in the article that you wrote, going back to the Ann Richards days. You know, what, like she said, you know, people just didn't talk about it so openly. But I just thought some of the things that you wrote about were so interesting.
You know, there was actually a period there where there was quite a bit of discussion about it. It kind of focused on a male member who would take women's hands and kiss them on the cheek, but it really came to a head because he got into popping bra straps, and which seems kind of ridiculous. And some of the women legislators actually bought an inflatable sex doll and put it in his office with a poem on it that, you know, was that if he needed to squeeze someone's hand, he could do it with the sex doll. State Representative Deborah Danberg was one of the women who did that, and you know, she told me that they had to do a lot of educating for a lot of the male legislators, because she carried a bill that up to that time it was legal for a man to rape his wife, and she carried a bill to outlaw spousal rape. And when she first brought it up in committee, one of the men in the room said, well, if I can't rape my wife, who can I rape? And she said, you know, then they had to kind of get across the idea of consensual and non-consensual sex. So there was a pretty big jump in there, and it may have been highlighted during that era by the fact that Ann Richards had won the governor's office, and so people were more willing to talk about it. And then we went into like a 20-year lull of secret whispers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, quarter century later, and we're hearing about this list that many women have been using for a number of years to talk about the stories that had happened to them. You guys interviewed a lot of different people. Many people don't want to use their name.
Yeah, you know, I had one person describe it to me as, you know, you can make a complaint, you can talk publicly about this, or you can have a career. I mean, the Capitol is a world where everything is built on relationships and loyalty and the trade of information, trade of favors. It's not an environment where, you know, women have felt, in particular, you know, that speaking up about this kind of thing is something that is not going to come with retaliation. So, yeah, the Tribune spoke to more than 24 staffers and lawmakers, current and former, about their experiences, and we did kind of learn about the ways in which you know, women have kind of tried to warn each other, like don't find yourself alone with this person, don't sit next to this person at political events. And then there's also a list that was started in 2016 for women, particularly in progressive circles, that basically is a list of names and shared experiences about, you know, encounters that women had had with the men on that list.
Mm-hmm. And the leadership has really responded to this. I mean, it's clear that so many people have pointed out that there aren't good policies when it comes to reporting in the House or the Senate or in the Capitol in general. You know, I know Lois Kolkhorst is going to be heading up a group. You know, what do you expect to come out of that?
That's a tough question, because one of the fundamental problems is how do you discipline an elected member of the legislature? And and they set the tone, I mean, for their staffs and everyone else. And one of the better examples is State Senator Boris Miles out of Houston, who, you know, forcibly kissed a woman in public against her will. He was charged with brandishing a gun, And he's been elected 3 times since then, when the least vote he ever got was 57%. So the place where their standards can actually make a difference is going to be with staff. And the way the setup is right now, like say the Senate Secretary handles all the support staff of the Senate, but each and every one of the members of the Senate are the employer of their staff. So you have to have some sort of system where it crosses all that level. And then on top of everything else, you have to have the actual legislators committed to enforcing it.
As we wrap up, I want to ask you, what kind of response have you gotten from your readers? And I mean, a lot of your readers are lawmakers too. What are they telling you about the fact that you guys are covering this issue right now?
I mean, we've had an incredible amount of interest in addressing this issue. I mean, the day after our story published, we had both the Speaker's office and the Lieutenant Governor's office call for reviews of how sexual harassment is handled at the Capitol. We, of course, have had, other people continuing to reach out to us to want to share their experiences. I think the important thing is just going to be moving forward to continue to watch and, make sure that this is something that keeps its momentum and, keeps people's attention on it.
Thank you very much for covering this very important topic. I know that a lot of people will be interested to see where this goes ahead of the next legislative session.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And thank you for all the perspective that you brought too.
Thank you.
All right. He's known as the tweeting judge on the Texas Supreme Court. Now the president nominated him for a federal court, but some of his old tweets could cause a problem. A KXAN investigation leads state lawmakers to look over your concerns over text tag bills. How the people in power are responding to our questions now.